Well, we had one not Mozart piece to start the program. I've got another not Mozart piece, but it's got a really interesting story coming up. The next, this is the first movement from another symphony that for a long time was thought to be Mozart, but there's a very interesting story behind it. You may not know of a composer called Michael Haydn. Name is familiar, but not quite. He's the younger brother of Franz Joseph Haydn, who is a very famous Viennese composer. His younger brother, Michael, wrote music that was just as good, but his career path went more towards church music. So he wasn't as well-known and famous that way. He was quietly like Bach. By the way, what is today? Bach's birthday, 388 years old. Doesn't sound a day over 200. Yeah. Well, anyway, Mozart and Michael Haydn in Vienna were actually very good friends. And they used to play one another's music, and they used to hang out in the local tavern. And very often, Mozart would write a piece for use by Michael in his church, and sometimes Michael would write music for Mozart to play in one of his concerts. Well, anyway, Mozart had a concert coming up, and he must have said over a stein of beer, "Hey, Michael, do you have anything ready to go?" And Michael said, "Sure enough." And he gave Mozart a symphony of his in G major. Well, Mozart being Mozart, he could never leave well enough alone, right? So that's what he did. He had this symphony in front of him that he put on this sort of public program, and he decided to write a one-page introduction to go with the symphony, and he did. And they performed the piece, and it was fine and everything like that. You know, music back then was like almost pop music today. It had to always be renewed and current. You played it, you composed it, and it was fine, it made an impression. Then you got rid of it because you had to make room for the new music coming up. It's just like pop music today. So after that concert, that music got sort of locked in a wooden chest, put in an attic someplace, and 30 years later, somebody rummaging around in that attic opened that trunk, and by this time, Michael and Amadeus were both passed on. He ran across this manuscript of a symphony, took it to a publisher, and the publisher, the first page had Mozart on it. And said, "Oh, an undiscovered symphony by Mozart will make lots of money," because that's what you did with music back then. So they published this symphony under Mozart's name. And it took a clever musicologist, 80 years later, that's what musicologists are good for, by the way, who went back to the original manuscript, pulled it out, and was looking at it, and yes, here's the first page, Mozart's name is in the top, yes, that's Mozart's handwriting. He turned the page, and as it turned out, none of the rest of the symphony was in Mozart's handwriting. So then he went to the publisher and said, "Are you sure?" And the publisher said, And another musicologist found out about this and happened to be able to cross-reference in Michael Haydn's chest of music. This is that symphony. And Mozart must have just written the first page. Well, the publisher wasn't too pleased, because if you're trying to sell stuff, you want a name, right? And Michael Haydn was not nearly as famous a name, a seller, as Amadeus Mozart. So the publisher resisted changing the name, and you can actually still buy music, this music, under Mozart's name, even though it's all a lie. We're giving you just the first movement, and yesterday, and I didn't even have any vodka. I was thinking about this. Yesterday at 4:24, what happened? Spring. 4:24 Eastern Standard Time. It was spring. And if you've been in Buffalo since like before Christmas, you know we've had some freaky winter. And I thought to myself, you know, this piece is just like that. The opening is winter, dark, gloomy, heavy, and then click, it's spring. Now your musical imaginations might come up with something else, that's fine. But when I'm up here conducting, my brain is going to go, yes, spring. Enjoy. pieces take us as an orchestra into some rather uncharted territory. These pieces you may know from entirely different settings and different ensembles. But you have to remember that in our music department, we're not merely like making performances, we are also educating our students. And one of the most important parts of the education is exposing all of our students to a wide diversity of music. So you may not be totally used to some of the sounds that are coming out now. However, I've got to tell you, I've never had so much fun actually conducting pieces as what you're going to hear now. The next three composers that you're listening to are all giants in the field of American music, either jazz or Latino music or a mixture of different styles that you don't usually get in an orchestra setting. I love this first piece because it reminds me of going to a jazz ensemble where in the middle of this piece, you know, the conductor points to a soloist and says, up, take over, and just rip away. And the conductor walks off stage for a cigarette. And that person is like riffing and improvising, and when they're sort of like spun out, they sit down and everybody applauds. And the conductor comes out back on and says, I haven't finished with my cigarette yet, why don't you solo? And they stand up, and it goes on like that. Now, unfortunately, we can't do that here, because I don't know what the cello would do. You know, stand up and play air cello, I suppose, when they're riffing. But you're going to hear four unusual semi-improvisation solos in the middle of the piece. It's very, very enjoyable. If you want to applaud them at the end, you go right ahead. The whole point is a little bit of diversity in our music here and have fun. Not just me, but all of you. I ought to can these speeches and sell them. The department can always use extra funds for like scholarships. Hint, hint. think we're going to give Lawrence Welk a run for his money. You're not old enough to know who that is. Now, you've probably heard this sung as a solo voice doing it. Whenever I hear it, I want to reach for like a glass of whiskey and a cigarette, maybe something stronger when I hear it. So you're right, yeah, we know how that goes, right? However, we've got such a good saxophone section, actually, that have come out to rehearse with us. Where saxophones aren't usually included in the orchestra, but I'll give you a secret. They're a lot cheaper to hire than oboes. So I thought, well, you are a graduating senior, right? Oh, you're not. He's been here so long it seems like it. So I thought this would be a very nice example to show some of our saxophone soloists off. So enjoy. I'm afraid there is no smoking in the auditorium, though. you try and plan for like every little thing that can go wrong. It's moments like that where I go home and I look at the calendar and count up the days to retirement. Well, speaking of cultural diversity, I have never, and from my cultural perspective, I've never seen or heard a piece where the title was so mismatched to the content of the music of our last piece. I mean, if you know the Spanish, the title of the piece is The Day of the Dead, which is actually quite a big festival in Mexico in November, right? May, okay, all right, it's coming up. Everybody go down there. So it's but it's really quite a different festival of how we consider like the Day of the Dead or funerals. The music for our Western perspective doesn't quite fit. So it's been a real eye-opener, and just like these other pieces, I've never had so much fun conducting. I can't believe they're still paying me to conduct this orchestra. So anyway, here to finish off, a quite rousing spectacle of dancing skeletons and God knows zombies or whatever else. The Day of the Dead. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, parents that support us. Thank you, all you contributors to the Scholarship Fund. We really appreciate it. Take care.